I've worked in the toll system for years, managing a bizarre parade of entities that most people would only hear about in horror stories. Over time, dealing with them became routine, though no less unsettling. That is, until today. Every day, the toll booth sees a variety of supernatural visitors. We encounter the whispering wraiths, ethereal figures that drift by with constant, eerie murmurs. They're harmless but can drive the unwary mad with their incessant whispers. The shambling dead, corpses that still retain a semblance of life, moving with a grotesque hunger. They're unsettling but generally non-threatening if you keep your distance. The flickering specters, ghostly forms that glitch in and out of existence. They're disorienting to observe but usually pass through without incident. The luminous orbs, benign spheres of light that float silently, offering a brief moment of tranquility amidst the chaos. The howling shadows, dark, growling forms that are intimidating but mostly pass through without causing harm. Their howls echo long after they're gone. The insectal horrors, insect-like creatures that skitter erratically, leaving behind a sickly residue. They're unsettling but not dangerous. The crying spirits, ghosts that weep endlessly, their sobs a haunting sound. They don't interact with the living but their presence is sorrowful and unnerving. The fractured visions, entities that appear as shattered reflections, constantly warping and shifting. They induce a sense of vertigo but are usually non-threatening. And then there's the Guardian, an entity known for its unusual friendliness and its role in keeping things in check. The Guardian is a tall, elegant figure with an aura of calm and a soothing presence. It has the unique ability to capture and contain rogue entities, making it a crucial part of our system. Its role is to ensure that any entities that slip through the cracks are quickly retrieved and properly managed. The Shadow Entity, Origins and Escape. The Shadow Entity, known as Erebus, is one of the most enigmatic and dangerous entities in our system. Its origins are shrouded in mystery, but ancient texts and folklore suggest that Erebus is a primordial being, born from the earliest nightmares of humanity. It is said to have existed before time itself, an embodiment of pure darkness and chaos. In ancient times, Erebus was a feared force, capable of consuming entire worlds in darkness. Legends speak of it devouring stars and causing endless night. It was bound by powerful sorcery and sealed within a realm of shadows to prevent it from spreading its corruption. Its containment was a monumental task, requiring immense energy and intricate spells to ensure it remained imprisoned. Centuries later, Erebus was rediscovered and contained within our toll system, a place where its darkness could be managed and controlled. It was an unsettling addition to our roster of entities, but the containment measures put in place were thought to be foolproof. The escape and its aftermath. The Shadow Entity's escape was a rare and alarming event. As Erebus slipped through the malfunctioning containment device, its influence began to spread immediately. Its presence distorted reality, warping the environment into a nightmarish landscape. Erebus's escape began with a series of ominous events. Reality distortion. As Erebus emerged from the containment field, it began to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, and areas of the toll booth shifted and twisted into grotesque, abstract shapes. The normalcy of our surroundings dissolved into a surreal nightmare. Psychological manipulation. Erebus's presence induced fear and paranoia. The very air seemed to thicken with dread, and disorienting illusions appeared. Staff members reported seeing figures out of the corner of their eyes and hearing whispers that were not there. The psychological strain on everyone present was immense. Environmental changes. Objects began moving on their own, furniture floated, and the floor shifted beneath our feet. Cold spots appeared sporadically, and an oppressive darkness settled over areas previously illuminated. Increasing anomalies. Erebus seemed to revel in the chaos it caused. It manipulated shadows to create unsettling visual displays, heightening the sense of fear and confusion. Cold drafts turned into biting chills, and every sound seemed amplified and distorted. The Guardian's response. As Erebus's influence grew, we immediately alerted the Guardian. Despite its usual efficiency and calm demeanor, the Guardian faced a formidable challenge. Erebus's ability to blend into the darkness and manipulate reality made it an elusive target. The initial stages of the battle involved reality stabilization. The Guardian deployed a reality-stabilizing lens to counteract Erebus's distortions. This lens aimed to stabilize the environment and reduce the visual and psychological effects caused by Erebus's presence. Light projection. The Guardian used beams of concentrated light to reveal Erebus's true form. The intense light cut through the darkness, but Erebus responded by absorbing and distorting it, causing a series of disorienting illusions and shifting shadows. Containment adjustments. The Guardian attempted to adjust its containment field to accommodate Erebus's shifting form. This included reinforcing the barriers and using enhanced light absorption technology to counteract Erebus's ability to blend with the darkness. The ongoing battle. As the fight with Erebus began, the environment continued to shift unpredictably. The Guardian's multi-phase containment system worked tirelessly to trap Erebus. The concentrated light revealed the shadow's true form, allowing the Guardian to refine its containment strategies. The battle was intense, with Erebus employing every trick to evade capture. It enveloped the containment field with its dark mass, causing momentary eclipses and plunging areas into near-complete darkness. The Guardian's form flickered as it struggled against the encroaching void. Yet, with a surge of radiant energy and the deployment of advanced containment systems, the Guardian managed to encase Erebus within a prison of stabilized light. The aftermath. The struggle was intense and draining, but the Guardian's persistence and skill ultimately triumphed. Erebus was finally contained, its form constricted and unable to blend with its surroundings. The distortions caused by its presence began to fade, and the environment gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy. The Guardian, though visibly exhausted, remained calm and composed. It used its soothing presence to stabilize the area further, ensuring that no lingering effects of Erebus's disturbance remained. The containment field was reinforced to prevent any further breaches, and the area was meticulously checked for any residual disturbances. The administrator, usually calm under pressure, was deeply relieved but aware of the gravity of the situation. We brought in additional specialists, paranormal investigators, psychics, and experts in ancient rituals, to assist in ensuring that such an escape would be prevented in the future. Their expertise provided valuable insights and bolstered our containment protocols. As I write this, the immediate danger has passed, but the memory of Erebus's escape serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of our world's boundary with the unknown. The Guardian's heroic efforts restored balance, but the encounter highlighted just how delicate that balance can be. We remain vigilant, knowing that the line between our world and the supernatural is more fragile than we ever imagined. If you experience strange phenomena or see shadows where there shouldn't be any, remember, sometimes, the things we're trying to contain are more than mere figments of our imagination. Story 2. Midnight at Crestwood. I landed a night job at Crestwood Animal Sanctuary. The pay was phenomenal, so when they offered me the position, I took it without hesitation. I had just finished a rough patch and needed a break. The job seemed straightforward: monitor the animals and keep an eye on the facilities. My first night began like any other. The sanctuary was peaceful, the kind of serene you'd expect from a place dedicated to animals. I walked through the grounds, checking in on the creatures as they slept. Everything was calm. It almost felt like a normal, if slightly eerie, job. But as midnight approached, things started to change. At first, I noticed the temperature dropping. The once pleasant night air grew cold, and a dense fog began to roll in. It was thick and disorienting, almost as if it had a mind of its own. I shrugged it off as a quirk of the night shift. Then I got to the tiger enclosure. The tigers had been asleep just a few hours ago, but now they were pacing restlessly. Their once golden fur shimmered with an unnatural sheen under the moonlight. Their eyes, once calm and gentle, glowed a disturbing shade of red. The sight was unsettling, but I tried to stay composed. Without warning, one of the tigers let out a low, rumbling growl. The sound was guttural and otherworldly. I watched in horror as the tiger's body began to contort and stretch. Its sleek fur twisted into bristly, dark stripes, and its face transformed into a nightmarish predator with jagged fangs and eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. The transformation was so violent it seemed to shake the very air around it. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned to flee, but the fog was so thick it felt like it was suffocating me. I could hear other animals, wolves howling, snakes hissing, changing, transforming into creatures of pure terror. Next, I approached the wolf enclosure. The normally calm pack was now a chaotic frenzy. Their eyes were a glowing, malevolent yellow, and their once soft fur bristled with a dark, thorny texture. They howled in eerie, unearthly tones, their voices blending into a haunting chorus that chilled me to the bone. One wolf, larger and more menacing than the rest, seemed to be the leader, its eyes burning with an intelligence that was both ancient and malevolent. The python enclosure was no better. The usually sluggish serpents were now writhing in a grotesque dance. Their scales glistened with an unnatural sheen, reflecting the fog like shards of broken glass. Their hissing was almost rhythmic, like a sinister chant, and their eyes were pools of blackness that seemed to swallow the surrounding light. When they moved, it was with a sinuous grace that was both beautiful and horrifying. In the bird aviary, the transformation was equally disturbing. The once vibrant parrots and hawks had turned into twisted, nightmarish versions of their former selves. Their feathers were matted and dark, and their eyes were like fiery embers. The screeches they emitted were more akin to the wails of tortured souls than the melodious calls of birds. Their talons and beaks had grown long and razor-sharp, and they flapped their wings with a frenetic, almost manic energy. As I continued my rounds, I reached the primate enclosure. The normally playful monkeys were now aggressive and wild-eyed. Their faces were twisted into grotesque, almost demonic visages, their eyes glowing with an unsettling green light. Their chatter had turned into a cacophony of high-pitched, shrieking noises that pierced through the night. Their limbs seemed to stretch and elongate in disturbing ways, and their movements were jerky and erratic. The seal pond was equally horrifying. The seals, once sleek and playful, had transformed into grotesque, amphibious creatures. Their smooth fur was replaced by slimy, glistening skin, and their playful barks had become deep, guttural roars. Their eyes were sunken and yellow, and their flippers had morphed into clawed appendages that scraped the water's surface. Finally, I reached the exotic feline house, where the usual calm cheetahs and leopards had become nightmarish beasts. Their sleek bodies were now covered in ragged, matted fur, and their spots and stripes had twisted into sinister patterns. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and their once graceful movements were now jerky and unpredictable, as if driven by a primal rage. Desperate, I ran for the main building, fumbling with my keys. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the door open. When I finally managed to get inside, I slammed the door shut behind me and leaned against it, gasping for breath. The sounds outside were a cacophony of fear, a chaotic symphony of growls, screeches, and howls. I spent the rest of the night in that small office, the distant howls and roars echoing through the walls. As dawn began to break, the noises gradually faded. The fog lifted, and the animals outside began to revert to their original forms. The tigers settled back into their cages, their eyes dimming to a normal shade. The wolves lay down in their dens, their fur returning to its familiar softness. The pythons coiled back into their enclosures, their scales losing their eerie sheen. The birds resumed their usual perches, their feathers regaining their vibrant colors. The monkeys huddled together, their faces returning to their usual, less menacing expressions. The seals returned to their playful antics, their skin becoming smooth again. The exotic felines lay down in their enclosures, their fur and eyes returning to their normal states. When Mr. Caldwell, the sanctuary director, arrived that morning, I was still in shock. He explained that the sanctuary housed magical creatures that transformed into their true, monstrous forms after dark. It was a necessary evil to keep them contained and prevent harm. He handed me a folder with emergency protocols and guidelines. "This job isn't just about monitoring animals," he said with a grim look. "It's about managing something far more dangerous. You need to be prepared for what comes after nightfall." I was terrified, but I also knew that despite the horror of the night, I couldn't back out now. The pay was good, but the real challenge was surviving until dawn, and maybe, just maybe, understanding the mysteries that lurked in the darkness. If you're ever offered a night job at Crestwood, think twice before you accept. The money might be good, but the true cost is a battle against the things that come out when the sun goes down. Update. I'm back with another update on my job at Crestwood Animal Sanctuary, and it's even more unnerving than my first night. I thought I had a handle on things, but the night shift has a way of throwing you for a loop when you least expect it. Last night started off like any other. The usual temperature drop, the fog rolling in, and the animals starting to transform as the clock struck midnight. The tigers, wolves, pythons, birds, primates, seals, and exotic felines all began their disturbing metamorphoses, and I braced myself for the usual chaos. But what happened next was something I couldn't have anticipated. It began with the tigers. They were unusually agitated, pacing their enclosures with an intensity that was new. Their guttural growls were louder and more frequent, and I noticed they were glaring at the other enclosures, especially the wolf pack. The tension in the air was palpable. Then, without warning, one of the tigers leapt over the enclosure's barrier, its monstrous form barreling toward the wolf pen. The wolves, already on edge, responded with a chorus of frenzied howls. They lunged at the tiger, their claws and fangs clashing with the tiger's powerful limbs and jagged teeth. The fight was brutal and savage, with neither side willing to back down. I tried to call for help, but the radio crackled with static, making it impossible to get a clear signal. I felt helpless as I watched the two predators tear into each other, their roars and growls echoing through the sanctuary. In the midst of this chaos, the pythons in their enclosure started to writhe with increased agitation. It was as if they sensed the conflict and decided to join in. They began to slither toward the source of the commotion, their bodies coiling and twisting in a menacing display. Their eyes, now even darker and more sinister, glinted with an unnerving intelligence. The snake's presence seemed to aggravate the situation further. The tigers and wolves, caught in their struggle, now had to contend with the threat of the pythons. The snakes hissed and struck, their fangs lashing out at both the tigers and wolves. The whole scene was a nightmarish tableau of intertwined limbs, fangs, and scales. Meanwhile, in the aviary, the once vibrant birds had become even more frenzied. Their screeches became deafening as they flew erratically around their enclosure, their claws slashing at anything that came too close. Their behavior seemed almost manic, as if they were reacting to the violence unfolding around them. A few of the birds began to peck and claw at each other, adding to the pandemonium. The primates in their enclosure weren't helping the situation. Their shrieks grew louder and more chaotic, and they began hurling objects from their enclosure into the adjacent areas. Their faces, twisted into grotesque masks of rage, seemed to reflect the overall chaos. They threw themselves against their enclosure's bars, trying to get involved in the madness outside. The seal pond was another scene of mayhem. The seals, now grotesque, amphibious horrors, were thrashing about violently. They lashed out at each other with their clawed flippers, their roars blending with the other noises. The water was a churning mess of dark, slimy tendrils as they fought. The exotic felines were not to be left out. Their once graceful forms were now aggressive and unpredictable. They leaped at each other, their claws and teeth flashing in the dim light, their snarls mixing with the sounds of the other battles. It was a brutal free-for-all among the felines. I barricaded myself in the office, trying to make sense of the chaos. The cacophony of roars, growls, screeches, and splashes made it impossible to think. I watched through a small window, feeling a sense of dread as the violence continued. The animals were fighting in a frenzy that seemed to have no end. By the time dawn began to break, the fight started to wind down. The animals, exhausted from their battles, began to retreat to their enclosures. The tigers and wolves were battered and bloody, the pythons had coiled back into their cages, and the birds had settled, though they were still agitated. The primates and seals were less aggressive, but their chaos had left the sanctuary in disarray. Mr. Caldwell arrived just as the first light of dawn touched the sanctuary. He surveyed the damage with a grim expression. "This is unprecedented," he said, his voice filled with concern. "The animals have never fought like this before. We'll need to investigate why this happened and take steps to prevent it from recurring." He handed me another folder with updated protocols and instructions. "We need to be more vigilant," he said. "Something triggered this conflict, and we need to understand what it was. I'm still shaken by the events of the night. The sanctuary is in disarray, and I'm left with more questions than answers. If you're considering a job here, be prepared for the unexpected. The creatures of Crestwood are more than just animals, they are forces of nature, and their conflicts can turn the night into a living nightmare." Update. I've had a few more shifts at Crestwood Animal Sanctuary since the chaos of last week, and I've been digging into the history of the place. What I've uncovered about the sanctuary's past and the origins of its monstrous inhabitants is more chilling than anything I could have imagined. The history of Crestwood isn't just a tale of animal care and conservation, it's a dark chronicle that stretches back centuries. The sanctuary was originally founded in the late 1800s by a wealthy, eccentric philanthropist named Victor Crestwood. He was a man with a deep fascination for the occult and ancient lore. His fortune allowed him to acquire a vast estate, which he transformed into a sanctuary for exotic and rare creatures. However, Crestwood had a particular interest in animals that were said to possess mystical qualities. According to old records and personal journals, Crestwood believed that certain animals were not just rare or unusual, but that they held ancient, magical properties. He sought out these creatures, not only from across the world but also from hidden, mystical sources. One of the most infamous parts of Crestwood's history is the supposed discovery of an ancient tome, known as the Grimoire of the Beast. This book was said to contain spells and rituals related to summoning and controlling mythical beasts. Crestwood, with his dark inclinations, used the book to transform the sanctuary from a mere collection of rare animals into a site of supernatural experimentation. The tome described rituals that allowed animals to access their true forms, which were monstrous and otherworldly versions of themselves. These rituals were performed under the cover of night, aligning with celestial events that were believed to amplify the creature's powers. This is why the animals transform into their monstrous forms after dark. They are acting out their true, enchanted nature. As I delved deeper into the records, I discovered that Crestwood's experiments were not without their consequences. The sanctuary faced numerous incidents where creatures became uncontrollable, leading to injuries and even deaths. The local community grew wary of the sanctuary, but Crestwood's influence and wealth allowed him to maintain a veneer of normalcy. When Crestwood died under mysterious circumstances in 1921, the sanctuary was taken over by a series of caretakers who struggled to manage the magical elements of the animals. Many tried to distance themselves from Crestwood's dark practices, but the effects of his experiments lingered. The transformations of the animals continued, and the sanctuary became known for its unpredictable and often dangerous wildlife. The current director, Mr. Caldwell, inherited not only the sanctuary but also the legacy of Crestwood's experiments. His role has been to manage and contain the magical creatures while trying to unravel the mysteries left behind by Crestwood's research. The protocols I was given are a part of an ongoing effort to mitigate the risks associated with these creatures, but the history is long and fraught with peril. I found old photographs of the sanctuary from its early days. They show animals in their natural forms, but the background is filled with arcane symbols and strange artifacts. It's clear that Crestwood was deeply invested in merging the mystical with the natural, and the sanctuary has never truly escaped the shadows of its origins. Mr. Caldwell has been candid about the difficulties of managing the sanctuary, but he's also hinted that there's much more to uncover. The sanctuary's archives are vast, and not all of the information has been made available to staff. There are gaps in the history and unfinished rituals that suggest the full extent of Crestwood's work is still not completely understood. Now, as I work the night shifts, I can't help but feel the weight of the sanctuary's dark history pressing down on me. The monstrous transformations are not just strange phenomena but echoes of a bygone era when magic and nature were intertwined in ways that defy understanding. If you're considering a position at Crestwood, be prepared for more than just the usual animal care. The sanctuary is a living testament to the intersection of magic and nature, and its history is as enigmatic and unsettling as the creatures it houses. Final update. I'm writing this final update with a mix of relief and lingering dread. After weeks of working at Crestwood Animal Sanctuary and delving into its dark history, I've come to a deeper understanding of what this place truly is, and what it means for anyone involved. The past few nights have been a whirlwind. Mr. Caldwell, ever the enigmatic director, has been conducting his own investigations into the sanctuary's darkest corners. He finally decided to share some of his findings with me, and what I learned changed everything. The true nature of the creatures. The monstrous transformations aren't just random occurrences or effects of the magical experiments gone awry. According to Mr. Caldwell, the animals at Crestwood are not merely enchanted, they are vessels for ancient, primal forces that were bound to this place by Victor Crestwood. Each creature harbors a piece of a powerful, otherworldly essence, and their transformations are a manifestation of these latent forces. The Grimoire of the Beast, which I thought was just an old book of rituals, is actually a key to understanding the sanctuary's creatures. The spells in the grimoire don't just alter the animals' forms, they unlock the raw, untamed power that has been dormant within them. This power is what makes them so dangerous after dark. The transformations are a struggle between the animal's natural instincts and the ancient force that lies within. The rituals and the sanctuary. Mr. Caldwell revealed that Crestwood's experiments were more than just misguided attempts at controlling mystical beings, they were part of a larger, more sinister plan. Victor Crestwood sought to harness these ancient forces for his own purposes, using the sanctuary as a conduit for their power. The sanctuary itself was built on ley lines, natural veins of magical energy that amplify the forces contained within the creatures. The nightly chaos was not just the result of random magical surges. It was a direct consequence of Crestwood's binding rituals being incomplete. The rituals were designed to control and focus the magical energies, but they were flawed and left unfinished. This is why the creatures, when the moon is full or other celestial conditions are met, become uncontrollable. The sanctuary's own magical foundation is unstable, causing the creatures to lash out as they attempt to break free from their binds. The current efforts. Mr. Caldwell has been working tirelessly to stabilize the situation. He's begun rituals to repair the bindings and create protective wards around the enclosures. There are ongoing efforts to reinforce the barriers between the supernatural and the physical, and to re-establish control over the ley lines. The process is delicate and fraught with risk, but Caldwell is determined to make it right. I've been assisting with these efforts, though my role has been limited to managing the sanctuary during the day and helping with minor tasks related to the rituals. The nights are still fraught with danger, but the increased protections seem to be making a difference. The creatures have been somewhat less volatile, and the night shifts have become more manageable. A grave warning. However, I must issue a dire warning. In recent conversations with Mr. Caldwell, I've uncovered a chilling plan that he has been keeping secret. Despite the progress in stabilizing the sanctuary, Caldwell has begun preparations to release the creatures from their enclosures. His stated reason is that the sanctuary should no longer act as a prison for these beings. He believes that allowing them to roam free could restore balance and fulfill their true purpose. However, I fear this plan is driven more by ambition and a desire to see the creatures' full potential unleashed, rather than any genuine concern for their well-being. If Caldwell proceeds with this plan, the sanctuary, and potentially the world beyond, could face unimaginable consequences. The creatures, with their raw, untamed powers, could wreak havoc if they are released into the wild or into unprepared environments. The delicate balance we have worked so hard to maintain will be shattered, and the dangers of the past could resurface in even more catastrophic forms. Final thoughts. If you are considering a position at Crestwood or if you're already involved, be vigilant. The sanctuary is a place of profound mystery and danger, and the decisions made within its walls could have far-reaching impacts. The creatures are not just animals, they are powerful forces that must be handled with the utmost care. For now, I will continue to monitor the situation closely and attempt to influence the course of events as much as possible. My hope is to prevent any actions that could lead to further chaos and destruction. Thank you for following my journey through this strange and unsettling experience. If you find yourself at Crestwood, approach with caution and awareness. The sanctuary's history is dark, its creatures are powerful, and the future remains uncertain. I don't know how much time I have, so I'll just get straight to the point. I've been babysitting for a few years now, mostly part-time jobs for families in this wealthy neighborhood. People trust me because I'm young and seem responsible, but this is different. I'm writing this from the master bedroom of the Wilkersons' house. The door is locked, but I can already hear the wood splintering. Oliver's going to break through any second, and I have no idea what to do. If someone finds this, please, just believe me. It all started off normal enough. The Wilkersons hired me to watch their son, Oliver. I've looked after plenty of kids, and while Oliver was strange, he barely spoke, never smiled, I didn't think much of it. Rich kids are often weird, and his parents didn't seem particularly warm either. But tonight was different. Tonight, I found the list. I was in the kitchen, looking for a snack, when I noticed a crumpled piece of paper shoved behind some cans. Curiosity got the best of me, so I pulled it out. At first, I thought it was just a random drawing, but then I saw the words. Legs. Arms. Eyes. Heart. The handwriting was too neat, too deliberate. It felt wrong, like it wasn't written by a child, or anyone human. I should have left right then and there. My gut screamed at me to run, but before I could do anything, I heard a soft, shuffling sound. I turned around, and there was Oliver, standing in the doorway. His face was completely blank. No expression, just staring. His eyes were wide, too wide, and for the first time, I noticed something off about them. They were too dark, like there was nothing behind them. You found it, he said, his voice calm. Too calm. I tried to play it cool, but my hands were shaking. Found what? The list. He smiled then, and I swear to God, his mouth stretched wider than it should have. I need more parts. I felt cold all over. Parts? What are you talking about? Oliver took a step closer, and that's when I saw it. His form started to shift. His limbs grew longer, thinner. His skin stretched like it was barely containing something underneath. And his teeth were sharp, too sharp for a kid. I always need more, he whispered, that strange calmness never leaving his voice. You'll do. I didn't wait for him to finish. I bolted out of the kitchen and up the stairs. I could hear him behind me, those slow, deliberate footsteps. He wasn't rushing. He didn't need to. It's like he knew I couldn't escape. I locked myself in the master bedroom, and that's where I am now. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely type this. I've blocked the door with a dresser, but it won't hold. The wood's already starting to crack, and I can hear him, scratching. Whispering. "They never get away," he says, his voice seeping through the door like a poison. "You're next on the list." I don't know what to do. The windows are locked, and it's too far to jump. My phone is dead. There's no one nearby who can help. And even if they could, I don't think Oliver is something anyone can stop. I just wanted a part-time job, but now I'm trapped in a house with something that isn't human. The door is about to give. I can hear him breathing on the other side, slow and steady. He's waiting for me to run out of options. Please, if anyone sees this. I don't know if you'll believe me. I don't even know if anyone will find this in time. But if you do, just know, he isn't a boy. And whatever he is, he's hungry. He's breaking through. I don't know how, but I managed to buy myself a little more time. Oliver broke through the door a few minutes after I posted, his eyes pitch black, his mouth twisted into that awful grin. I couldn't even scream. I just grabbed the nearest thing, an old lamp, and swung it at him as hard as I could. The light flickered when it hit him, and for a second, I don't know how to describe it. He flickered too, like he wasn't really there. He stumbled back, just for a moment, and that gave me enough time to run. I'm in the closet now, hidden behind a row of suits. I've barricaded the door with whatever I could find in here, but I can hear him pacing outside. He's not knocking anymore. He's just waiting. Whispering to himself. The light in here keeps flickering. Every time it dims, I swear I can feel something move behind me, like shadows are stretching toward me. I think this house is his, in a way that goes deeper than I can explain. I feel like it's watching me. Maybe even helping him. I'm typing this as fast as I can, but I don't know how much longer I'll have. The phone is almost dead, and there's no signal here anyway. It doesn't matter. Even if I call for help, I don't think anyone can get here in time. Oliver isn't a boy. He's not even a monster. He's something else entirely. Something old. Something hungry. I can hear him getting closer again. The light is starting to dim, and his whispers are growing louder. I don't know if I'll be able to send another update. If I don't make it, please, whoever reads this, don't come looking for me. Don't come to this house. And if you ever meet a child named Oliver, don't stay. Don't ask questions. Just run. Final update. This is it. I don't think I have much time left. He found me. I thought I could hide in the closet, but I was wrong. I should have run when I had the chance. The light flickered again, and this time, Oliver didn't wait. He didn't pace or whisper. He just stood there, outside the door, completely silent. I could hear him breathing, slow and steady, like he was savoring the moment. Then, without a sound, the door creaked open. I don't know how. I locked it. I barricaded it with everything I could find, but it didn't matter. He walked in, his body twisted and unnatural, his face contorted into that awful, hollow grin. He's standing in front of me now, just watching. He's not a kid anymore. His skin is stretched too tight, and his eyes, they're nothing but black pits, endless and cold. Every time I blink, he's closer. I'm shaking so badly I can barely type this. I can feel him, his breath on my neck. I don't think I'll be able to finish this, but I need to try. I need someone to know what happened here. If this post ends abruptly, you'll know why. He's so close now. I can feel his hands, cold, clawed, hovering just above my skin. He's whispering again, but I can't make out the words. It sounds like, laughing? Like he's amused. Like he's been playing with me this whole time. The light is fading. I can barely see the screen. There's nowhere to go. Nowhere to hide. I don't think he'll drag it out any longer. If anyone reads this, remember what I said, don't come here. Don't ever come here. Don't trust the people who live in these big, beautiful houses. And don't trust the children. The list was real. I know that now. I wasn't the first, and I won't be the last. He'll keep feeding. He always needs more. He's behind me now. I can feel.